Welcome to this Times Techies webinar. I am Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Akhil George. The two of us will moderate this discussion that we are having in association with the MeitY nasscom Center of Excellence. And we are going to discuss generative AI in healthcare for the next billion. Gen AI, of course, is all the buzzword today. And we are beginning to see it being applied in a variety of areas, often with fascinating results. Coding, of course, is emerging as one of the mainstream cases, and we are hearing of 10 to 30% of productivity increases in that area. In healthcare, which of course has a lot of regulatory constraints, use of AI doubtless has to be done more carefully. But here too, fascinating applications are emerging, including in complex areas such as quickly being able to narrow down molecules that could be relevant for a particular treatment. To discuss all this and the work that is happening in India in these areas, we have an outstanding panel of experts in the space today with us. We have with us Anil Kumar Madugulla. Anil is Senior Director and Site Leader for Baxter R&D Bengaluru and for Global Software R&D for Infusion Systems. Anil is a healthcare technology leader with over 23 years of experience in digital transformation, medical innovation, and organizational leadership. He has played a key role in developing software solutions for critical healthcare domains, including infusion systems, renal and acute care, and medical imaging technologies such as X-ray, CT, and MRI. Welcome, Anil.
Morning.
Morning. We have Girish Raghavan. Girish is Chief Technology Officer for Women's Health and X-ray and VP of Engineering in the India Technology Center of GE Healthcare. He's currently in France and speaking to us from there. Girish has over 3 decades of experience in the healthcare industry. At GE Healthcare, he leads the engineering efforts for the monitoring solutions business, focusing on the development of advanced patient monitoring systems. Girish's expertise spans various domains, including medical devices, imaging, and patient monitoring technologies. Welcome, Girish.
Thank you, Sujit. Great to be part of the panel.
We also have Dr. Vishnu Vardhan. Vishnu is founder and CEO of SML and Viri Inc. ventures that are focused on advancing generative AI in healthcare. He played a key role in developing Hanuman, the multilingual, multimodal large language model designed to improve accessibility in managing metabolic diseases. He has a background as an orthopedic surgeon. So he brings a blend of medical expertise and technology to address healthcare challenges. At Viri Inc., his work involves integrating meta-omics with Gen AI to explore new possibilities in precision medicine. Welcome, Dr. Vishnu.
Hi, great to be here in the panel. Hi, everyone.
We also have Balaji Uppili. Balaji is president of strategic initiatives for GS Lab in technology services company GAVS. Balaji has over 30 years of experience in the IT industry across application value management, infrastructure management, BPO, and strategic operations. He has handled P&L, delivery, operations, and customer relations across information services, retail and hospitality, media and publishing, manufacturing and logistics, and consumer goods. Balaji previously had stints at Patni Computers, L&T Infotech, Cognizant, and Virtusa Software. Welcome, Balaji.
Thank you. Very good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
Anytime. We also have with us Sanjeev Malhotra. Sanjeev has been on this platform several times. He is CEO of MeitY nasscom Center of Excellence for IoT and AI. Sanjeev started his career in Intel in the San Francisco Bay Area. He led product development, strategy, and global operations at Intel, and later Qualcomm and other companies. In his nasscom role, he's building the innovation ecosystem with startups, corporates, government, and academia, focusing on technologies like IoT, AI, and robotics, and its application in different industries, including healthcare. Welcome, Sanjeev.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Excellent. Those who are viewing this can send in questions to the Facebook comment box. Sujit and I will put them to all of the panelists. So, Sanjeev, why don't we kick it off with you? Generative AI is creating a lot of buzz in healthcare, but translating that buzz into real impact, especially for the next billion technology, right? how does MeitY nasscom COE uniquely support startups and industries in building scalable, responsible, and industry-ready generative AI solutions for healthcare?
Right. As it was said in the introduction, there is a lot of work that is happening in Gen AI, and there is hardly a discussion that goes without it. But I think what we do as an organization, the vantage point that where I sit at is bringing and aggregating innovations which are happening across the country. I mean, there is so much work already happening in this area. If I just start with the startups, we are an organization, I think before that, let me just say, we are an organization that sits an intersection of startups, industry, and the government. And we focus on nurturing homegrown solutions, homegrown innovations, working with hundreds of startups across the country. We work with industries, both in domain as well as in technology, to see the latest relevance of these technologies. People like Girish and Anil bring so much of wealth of domain expertise that we need to build this ecosystem as well as these solutions. So we count on their expertise on the domain. While I'm a technology person, but we need a lot of domain expertise which these people bring. So they are part of this ecosystem and actively contributing, and thanks to their efforts, they put into it as well. And the third element is the government side of things, right? I mean, where we have to see how the technology can actually be applied for some of the citizen-centric areas, how to bring benefit of this technology to the people of the country, where a lot of them are deprived of good healthcare access. Technology is the one which is the easiest one in filling that gap, apart from producing more hospitals and doctors, which anyway is happening. But I think technology is the one which is going to be the tool for bridging that gap. Now, coming back to the ecosystem part, there is so much work happening in the startup world, and this ecosystem has grown thanks to the effort by the government and thanks to the effort by the corporate and the VC, which is also pumping a lot of money into some of the deep tech sector, which was not the case till a couple of years ago. We have seen widespread innovation come up in a lot of different areas, and we try to find the solutions and application of these areas in different parts of the country. Now, giving you an example, there are companies who work with us where we help them find the right solution. There was a company which had developed a solution in one of the areas for the viral infections during COVID time, and due to regulatory things, they could not market it properly. We connected them to another. We found another application for that particular solution, how they can be applied for animals. And now they're working closely with one of the biggest poultry farms of the country to see how this thing can be brought to them. And they're already actually created a solution and getting deployed. Just one example. And then we creating a funding for some of these startups, and then bringing these startups from Gen AI to some of these applications, and people working in creating a solution in Tamil Nadu. I'll talk about it later. But that is with the startup. For the industry side, again, there these startups that they do also find an application in the industry. And Anil and Girish can talk more about, and so can Balaji, about how they believe, how they use some of these solutions and take it to global level also. It's not just restricted to what we do for the citizens of the country, but these solutions are now becoming so international class solutions that we can take them to global level. And we are the platform where we all continue to work together and evolve this way of working together also, because it's not easy for a small company to work with billion-dollar company that these people represent here, billions of dollars of revenue that they have. This is the way we want to together grow this ecosystem. We see a lot of value in it and a lot of potential in it, and we continue to increase our reach and increase this impact that we can create with the innovation that is happening in the current country. Our goal is to maximize the impact both for the healthcare in the country and also the growth of these new solutions to the global level also.
Have you seen a lot more startups come up in healthcare, particularly, especially after this AI excitement started?
Absolutely. Well, AI is now almost becoming like a horizontal, right? I mean, the AI is the thing that cuts across most solutions. There'll be hardly very few companies who will say they are not using AI. I mean, some of them are purely AI driven, and some of them use it as on top of the hardware they develop and the solutions they are making. So answer is yes. We have seen, I mean, there would be at least 500 startups or more in healthcare alone in the country. And I will say that 80% of them will claim and will actually be using AI there. And now we are beginning to see applications on the Gen AI side as well, Sujit. That is another thing which I'll tell you an example, as we go along.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me then get the others in. Same thing. I mean, all of you are working in this space, and tell us specifically innovations or applications of Gen AI. Where do you believe these have the most potential to transform global healthcare? Anil, if you could start.
Yeah, I think that's a great question to look at. I mean, see, if you look at maybe a hospital as an enterprise, I mean, you got, let's say, a couple of dimensions to look at. A clinical view to look at a hospital, the key decisions that happen across the care pathways. And the next one is an operational path. I mean, I think we undermine the efforts the nurses in the country put or in a hospital to save a life, all right? And then the equipment itself. I mean, there's a lot of devices that are at play, and then they also all have to be reliable and working around the clock. So in fact, these three dimensions of care, if you look at it, and as Baxter, we work across the diagnostic and the therapeutic segments. Now, imagine actually all of us can book a ticket to go from here to US across 3 continents and across 3 carriers and reserve hotels all on a click. Can we do that in healthcare today? Right? Interoperability, if I were to take one pivot, Sujit, I think interoperability is a huge challenge, right? I mean, across the diagnostic devices and the therapeutical devices, and then the blood tests, and then the other kind of lot of data that's available.
Interoperability,
so to me, I think.
Interoperability meaning?
How can all these devices and data that are there, right, come together to allow you to make a decision, right? I mean, you can work across multiple other segments, but if you look at healthcare, that's one of the key challenges across all the enterprises. Now, the beauty I see, especially with the frameworks of generative AI and then the agentic AI frameworks that are developing, disparate systems, right? I mean, can be honed and created different LLMs for them. And then what does the core LLM bring you? It gives you reasoning, context, and memory, right? Now, what if we can leverage that to integrate the data across this care continuum? Let's say a patient, if you take a case of sepsis as an issue, as a disease segment, a person walks in with a fever, you have his temperature recorded, you got his vitals taken, right? And then something's degrade, you put him on a ventilator, a respiratory system, and difficult and critical drugs. You may do some, surgeries and all. There's a lot of data that's going across all of this, right? The question is, how do you integrate all of that to make a decision or provide assistance, to the doctors and nurses in all these workflows? I feel the power is tremendous. I think it's just a beginning. I mean, the challenges we will talk about, but I think it can change the care that we are giving in the hospitals and allowing those decision making, especially as you scale in an Indian context of healthcare across the tier 1, 2, 3 cities, given the scarcity of, the quality of training and the knowledge that is there in the various segments, be it the doctors or nurses or other people that are supporting these, decisions. Yeah.
Is there any specific area where you already have implemented and where you've seen results, or is this too early?
We are maybe not specific areas, but let's say, as I said, sepsis. I mean, we're looking at how hemodynamics, fluid management, and therapy actually can come together. In fact, in making decisions as you generate more data and go into it. See, one need to keep in mind, a lot of diagnostics, it's a bit easier to do. But today, from a therapy viewpoint, the kind of data we have is not enough to make enough, predictable decisions. In fact, I was looking at certain companies doing a lot of this. Let's say the confidence interval of these companies in fact, including getting hundreds of parameters of data. I was talking to the CTO of this company. He says, hey, Anil, it's around 58%, right? Hey, that's a bit better than flipping a coin. And then I asked him, hey, what is the challenge? He said the time resolution of data. I mean, we get data, let's say, every 1 hour. Is that enough? No, there's so many black swan events, that happen in an ICU kind of a critical care setting. And there's a lot to do in that area. Actually, if we can increase the resolution of data and interoperate the data that's coming from various devices, and that's a beautiful space, and you can actually make a meaningful effort in saving a life in the country.
Okay. Girish?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think Anil covered a big part of what actually healthcare is going through. But if we just step back a bit and look at what is the problem we are trying to solve, right? We are trying to solve three big problems using generative AI. One is hospitals are going through a bit of a productivity issue, right? So if you go and ask a customer, they're saying that they're going through a lot of margin challenges and efficiency is being questioned, productivity is being questioned. And we see Gen AI taking a lot of prominence in the healthcare sector, in hospitals, more focused towards building an efficiency and productivity into the hospital ecosystem. This could be as simple as billing, could be as simple as reporting, could be scheduling, right? All these things are areas where we see AI and Gen AI taking a lot of prominence. The second problem we are seeing today is on the clinicians' efficiency, right? So today, I would say clinical outcome. So we have a lot of clinicians and radiologists and doctors and physicians in the hospital ecosystem. And obviously, with a variety of folks comes difference in experiences and outlooks on how they look at outcomes. So we are seeing a lot of effort going on using AI and Gen AI, more focused towards bringing a kind of normalization among the physician community. So it is all access to data. I think Anil covered this a bit. It's just access to data, and having more data gives you the same experience what you would build over several years, if not in decades, right? And especially in the clinician side, we are seeing again the prominence of Gen AI more in the focus area of reporting. So we have so much of data in the ecosystem today, be it pathology or radiology, genomics, right? And how do we get all these together and have reporting in a more efficient way? Today, reporting is to a large extent very single dimensional today. And getting all these converge and having a good report, which can be used by clinicians, is going to be significantly important. The last area we are seeing a lot of prominence is also on the hospital workflow, especially today. They're all interlinked, right? From a scheduling perspective, it's a lot of challenge because of a lot of overload in the healthcare diagnostic space. So how do we get information to schedule more efficiently, right? How do we have the workflow more optimized, looking at opportunities of improvement? A simple thing would be that today when you do a scan, there are a lot of settings to be done in a hospital in a product, and then you need to get a lot of information from multiple systems to make the right setting. Today, a lot of cases, it is with limited information, you make those decisions. Using AI, you'll be able to pull data from a hospital information system or a risk system or from a EMR, and then give suggestions and opinions to the technologists on what has to be done. This is all what we see today as a current problem, right? But if you fast forward and see where we are heading towards as an industry, we are trying to make the entire systems intelligent today. So today, to a large extent, the healthcare ecosystem, I won't say 100%, but to a large extent, the systems are a bit dumb, right? In the future, you'll see that the AI is going to play a huge role in making the entire system intelligent, such a way that the systems can be able to recommend things to us, walk us through every step of the hospital journey for a patient and for the clinicians as we go forward. So at some point in time, it will become like the Teslas of today, right? It's far away, but it's somewhere we will get to in a reasonable period of time.
How far away?
Oh, it's decades, I would say, to get to the same level as that. Because the other thing is, I think we are talking about healthcare as a regulated environment. It's patients' life, right? So some of these technology might mature much faster, but in terms of having claims and getting to a point where it is safe on patients, it will take much more longer time than what it would take in an automation industry or in an industrial world.
Girish, any specific example where you actually implemented and where you saw some, where you can provide some metrics?
Yeah. I think that quite a bit today. I would say one space we are seeing a lot of Gen AI coming today is in the space of services, Right? See, today we have a lot of devices in the field. We have got fleets of systems in the field today. We are seeing a lot of AI being used in terms of serviceability, like into diagnose issues more efficiently. Today, especially if you look at our systems are installed in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. And how do we have good serviceability? Again, there's a lot of scope and role being played by AI. The other area we are seeing a lot of areas also in terms of clinical outcomes. Again, when you have a CT scan or MR scan, we are seeing again AI playing a big role in assisting the clinicians to find lesions, assisting the clinicians to find structural defects, etc. So it's more at this point, it's more of an assist tool than I would say autonomous devices. But
some of these
today,
processes have become faster.
but faster, and it's giving inputs to the clinicians to make the decisions with the data what they have, as
Okay.
against just shooting in the dark.
Okay. Balaji, you must be you implementing for a lot of clients, is it? Is Gen AI a big part of what they all ask for?
Yeah, Sujit, first of all, thank you. Representing GS Lab Cabs, only focused on healthcare and AI, Sujit. The reason is I think healthcare is really feeling the need for AI, and I think it plays a very good role. So, back to your question on exact use cases, right? If you look at, I'm going to talk about 5 specific areas very quickly. First one is voice biomarkers. I mean, you can actually take voice samples and taken it over a period of time and be able to make out from the voice whether there is a potential wellness problem or a mental behavioral problem. And we've been about 70% accurate in terms of we being able to do that, right? So that is one use case where we actually
commercialized it.
We have commercialized it, yes.
Yeah.
The second one, which we are really working on, is hospital-acquired infections. Because we work only in the hospitals, we have a lot of data obfuscated discharge information so that the PHI and HIPAA are not compromised, but yet have the efficacy of the drugs, efficacy of the treatment, and what is the potential risk of hospital-acquired infections. We have actually piloted in 3 large hospitals in the US, and the accuracy is about 70-75%. And we want to now expand it and roll it out larger. So that's the second big use case we see.
But you use sensors and all that to figure out what is there?
Yeah, there are, if you look at nowadays with the likes of GE Healthcare, Dozy and others, there are a lot of telemetry information which comes from the bed and from the diagnostic information around the bed in a hospital, in a ward. So we're able to use that data and be able to come up with some conclusions and insights. So it's a proactive decisions can be taken. For one of the payers, we're actually figuring out what is the success of a wellness program for an individual so that they don't end up in ER. ER is the largest cost for any hospital. So how do we prevent people visiting an ER and create a proactive wellness program and find out insights from the data which has been captured on wellness, provide very specialized individualistic wellness programs. In another big hospital in India, actually, we are deploying a POC. At the moment is a POC. It is to figure out management of beds. So people come in for discharge as well as for inpatient, and they wait for long. So how do we optimize the beds? How do we figure out which hospital is the right hospital for that individual to go? It's a very large chain I'm referring to. So we're doing a prototype to figure out how it is. The accuracy right now is about 55-60%. We need to fine tune it better. Right, that's something we're working. Then we are also working with a very large pharma company. This is a very interesting use case where we are actually helping them to make decisions whether the shipment needs to be air versus ocean. And it is actually helping in cost savings for them for sure. And that's significant. It's about 35-40% of cost saving. But more importantly, 70-80% of carbon emission control because of air versus ocean. And then figuring out, of course, once that decision is made, figure out how to build those SKUs and be able to ship it and do it on the process, because there are nuances between air shipment and the ocean shipment. So these are certain areas where we are seeing genuine applicability of AI, and it's every day. The last one which we've been working, the last 1 week has been.
Why is it going? No, something happened. Can you go on, Balaji?
Yeah, so the last one we've been working the last 1 week has been to find out a conversation between a patient or a potential patient and the hospital clinician or a hospital call center for appointments and for follow-ups and others, and figuring out what's the pattern coming out of it. Are there any patterns coming out of those follow-up conversations and provide insights back to the hospital? Yesterday, we started conversations of figuring out how do we help doctors to create a diagnosis rather than they going through multiple scanned reports, multiple MRI images. So something which was taking about 18 to 20 minutes to really scan is now brought it down to less than 5 minutes. So the doctor can spend more time with the patient rather than going through the reports. Those are certain areas, but I don't think if somebody is going to wait for AI to mature itself, it's not going to happen. It's already matured. I think it's time for us to actually accept it, embrace it, and apply it. I do acknowledge the fact that there are ethics responsible there, there's responsibility there, there is governance there, there's explainability there, and there is auditing there, because it has its limitations in certain cases, it has its flaws. But I think AI is here now and need to be adopted.
Needs to be adopted. Okay. Dr. Vishnu, tell us, I mean, I know before this conversation started, you were talking about some fascinating work you're doing. Give us a sense. I mean, GenAI, of course, is a separate company for you itself that you're applying to healthcare.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of the work that you're doing.
Yeah. I will tell the real use cases which we have implemented and going to, work on with GenAI. So all the use cases are GenAI only. And also I will tell about the whole GenAI ecosystem as a whole for healthcare. So the first thing is, now I will come with the clinicians. So radiology is one of the biggest domain where GenAI AI is really worked a lot. So yeah, this use case is all the use cases are from US, but which I feel can be really applied in India also because see, if it is US or India, the problem is same. There are few doctors, more patients. So this problem is same everywhere, and we have currently we work with a very large radiology firm, so which processes about 100,000 radiographs in a day. So it's like nearly 3 million in a month. So working in about 22 states. So their biggest problem was radiologists. Radiologists are very expensive in US. They're paid as much as $600 in an hour. So how much is their output is the biggest challenge, right? So you can only scale up. A radiologist can report about 10 radiographs in an hour. So it's like nearly $60 for one radiograph. So we said, can we use GenAI to increase their output? Because what happens is most of the solutions which came pre-GenAI were like trying to solve one problem. Okay, there is a nodule in the lung. So can my AI diagnose it? There is a TB positive or negative. So these were very simple use cases. But in real life, it doesn't never come like that. You interpret an X-ray of chest. Whether you will look for a nodule or you will look for a TB or you will look for 100 other things, is not going to solve the problem. So we saw that there are 20, 30 solutions which are being used, standalone solutions, and each solution has to go for FDA approval. It takes years, millions of radiographs and all that, super expensive. We said we flip the model. We said we use GenAI and then we interpret the X-ray, we interpret the CT scan, we interpret the MRI scan, and then give the whole report to you. Now, as a radiologist, you look at it, you agree, say yes, or else you edit it. Ultimately, you are going to take the decision. There is no problem of FDA approval or anything because my generative AI is not doing your job. It's only increasing your productivity. So we started with X-rays, and then now it's gone to everything. So virtually, we virtually interpret all their scans, and then we have flipped the whole thing. Like I do the first work, then you take it over. So it's increased their efficiency by 5x. Imagine that, like increase their efficiency by 5x, and it is really 96 to 95% accurate. So only out of 100, they are really working on 5, 6. All the others are, and then we said, okay, report generation is so complex. Why don't we just auto-generate the report? Because if I study 100,000 reports of a company, then I can virtually do it. So generative, I can do it. So that's a huge solution we have implemented. That's one thing. The other one, which I was talking to you before this meeting, was diabetes reversal itself. It's a huge opportunity because See, diabetes reversal, when we started working on individual patients, it's a very complex thing. I could only do 107 cases in first 18 months. Imagine, it was so complex. Virtually, we had to figure out their lifestyle, their food habits, to their CGM data, to their medication, so many things, behavioral change. It's a complex thing. So, but we said, can we scale this up? This is never going to scale up and it will be very expensive if I have to treat like very few patients. So with Gen AI, what has happened is now we are doing it at a scale, because all that which used to take me so much of time is just auto generated now. So I have my own agents which work. We have really scaled it up. Now
So
we
how
are
does that
in a
work
process
exactly?
of.
In the diabetes reversal
So
case, how
what we
does it
do
work?
is, for diabetes reversal, it's a huge problem. We have created panels. We have created panels of genetics we need to see, the metabolites we need to see, and proteome and gut microbiome we need to see, and then the lifestyle points which we need to. So we give a continuous glucose monitor. We follow these people's food habits, lifestyle, medication, everything. So it's a huge continuous data which is coming. We take all this in real time, and then once they come and sit with the doctor, so all this 1 month's information is just there. So you don't need to go through all these reports and then create these complex things. So they have like what they need to exactly look at, tell this patient. Nutritionist does the same thing. So we have brought it down to like, you take like out of 15 minutes, it takes them only 2 minutes to just see through all the reports, and they get like 13 minutes to talk to the patients, which was totally opposite. Like in US, the biggest problem was doctors is always typing on my, you know, that is the huge problem. Like, because there, if you don't write pages and pages, you're not going to be like reimbursed with the insurance. You have to write the report. So whether you see the patient or not, write it. Like, so it's that problem. So we have sorted that out. But we also this is going to be big. I will tell for India. See, India diabetes is like rampant.
Huge.
30 years, 40 years, people have got it. Without using a scale, we are never going to solve this problem. And diabetes is the biggest game changer. Once a person gets diabetes, all the other complications follow. It's like the starting point of all the problems in the world. So if you don't really solve it at a scale, then it's going to be huge complex burden on the healthcare. We can't go on building more hospitals or saying, okay, I will create more medical colleges to create doctors. That's never going to solve this problem. Problem has to be solved in a totally different way. I feel generative AI is one huge advantage. We can really scale this up. We want to launch this in India. So the third is the most expansive thing which we are working. We are building something called a personal LLM model for each person. So there are 9 different omics which we study. It's complex to talk in like, but I will say that like from genes to proteins to metabolites, everything we study. We generate 250 JB data for one person, and then using that billion data points, I can create your own personal model, which is very very accurate. It's your digital twin, real digital twin. People have been talking about digital twins, but this is the real digital twin because it's exactly is built for you. It's like a fingerprint. Using this, if I can, like I will tell one very simple thing. Aspirin. If someone gives me aspirin, it doesn't suit me. But will a doctor know that without my genomic study? They will not know, right? So aspirin is so common thing which is prescribed. So these kind of insights are there in this billion points. So every drug you are prescribed, everything you are given, so we can really cater it. But
How close
this
are you
kind
to
of data,
developing that?
huh?
How close are you to
Oh,
perfecting the digital?
we have developed it. We have a lab in which has really brought down the scale of it. Like we have done it for 100,000 people currently. It's the highest data set in the world. So we are launching it in US this year. We will do for like nearly 250,000 people. I'm going to bring the same concept to India also. Imagine like this billion data points we can study for like currently for $1,000. It's like nearly 78,000 rupees. That's the product we'll be launching. So I'm very, very upbeat about it because in India, our genes has not been studied. I will tell you why. All the drugs, everything given for Indians are based out of European or US standards and their data sets. They don't even suit for India. We are overprescribed or underprescribed for many, many things. That's the biggest challenge we need to solve. And this can be solved only by using genomics at a population scale, but we have not done it. So we are going to bring that. So this precision will come to India this year only. We are launching it. So I'm doing it in April. So this is, and my ultimate utopia is an totally AI automated hospital. There is this huge project coming up in US, $3.8 billion hospital. It's Tesla. The aim is like Tesla of healthcare. So we're working with them. It's a 7-year project. It just started last year. So it will be like nearly 2030. You will see first Tesla in healthcare, because healthcare always is kind of complex and regulated. So we can't be fast. So it takes a lot of time. It's a huge project that's coming up. From automated robotic beds to everything has been totally automated in that. But it's a huge, expensive project.
Is it public yet, or you can't name the hospital?
Yeah. But like the project has been started, but it's a 7-year project. It will be finished in 2030.
Okay.
So for that, we are building the whole thing from NVIDIA chips to large language models to understand the whole thing, like whole AI for healthcare is being built for that. It's such a huge project that's coming. A lot of interesting things are happening in AI in healthcare. And I have not even touched about the drug discovery, proteomes.
Okay, we'll come to
protein,
that later if you have
all that.
time,
Like,
Dr. Vishnu. Akhil, I know some really
Maybe we
fascinating.
should touch a little bit on what about telemedicine, especially in India. That would be a huge thing, right? Can the camera itself, can any camera diagnose me? Isn't that something? All you need is a visual language model, visual large model probably is enough.
Camera can really diagnose a lot of things. See what doctor does, they diagnose you seeing. Like they don't need to measure all you as you walk. Doctors can diagnose a lot of things. So camera can also do that. It's a huge. So that's why I'm saying generative AI is next level compared to all the AI that was there, because generative AI is visual. You can see the image, you can hear the speech, you can see the video, many things it can process at the same time, and it can learn at a scale. So it's going to be a huge game changer, especially in healthcare.
I know. To all the others, I mean, and of course, some of you touched upon it, but healthcare is a highly regulated sector. So, I mean, what kind of barriers do you face in adopting LLMs in your workflows? I mean, there are, of course, issues like privacy, security, hallucination and bias and all that particularly. Have you kind of solved, has technology solved for it already, or are they still in the works? Anil, you want to take a shot?
I think, hearing all the conversations, as I think Dr. Vishnu is also saying, see, we need to be extremely careful when it comes to healthcare. Maybe we need to analyze a model. There are some things that are very clear and simple, some things that are complicated, some things that are complex, and some things that are chaotic, right? So, if you look at an ICU, degradation of a person is a very chaotic model. We don't even have enough data to get there, right? Now there's something that are pretty complex. I think we need to be cautious in how do we handle, what kind of use case are you looking at? And is it a simple one? Let's say, nurse workflows. Those are easy. Maybe the LLMs can learn, right? That's not a challenge. But as it gets more complex, and are you looking at therapy, as I said, a lot of studies which we have done for a critical care patient in the ICUs. Let's say when I was talking to a lot of other companies, I think the confidence interval is 50-60%. See, I think we need to understand today all the things that we are using, the car you come, right? Anything that you use as device in the hospital are very reliable. The amount of testing we as organizations go through to launch a product in healthcare, the verification, validation, the extent that we go through, and having medical doctors on board, nurses, the way we go through all of this is pretty rigorous. Now imagine, I think the fundamental problem with LLMs are they're probabilistic. They're not deterministic. So we are trying to move away from a very deterministic world into a probabilistic world. While I hear, things like 70%, but I tell you, when we wanted to launch algorithms just from surveys, not forget clinical, right? We said we have to be as reliable as 95 to 97%. And those are the metrics we were tracking to a long time back before we even launch a simple algorithm, right? So, I think we need to be extremely cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic, let me put it that way, right? Because the language itself, if you ask a fundamental question, right? Let's say I take pictures of myself for my whole life. Do I capture Anil? Do you capture my life? Can you give a meaning to that? You cannot. So I think we need to keep that in mind. Now, let's say we capture all the data in a hospital. Can I capture a patient? You can make an attempt, but it depends on, are you looking at a clear, complicated, complex, or a chaotic situation? I think that is the, maybe caution all of us when we give out these products and make decisions and give out decisions. I think we need to play by that, because at the end, I'll tell you, I think when my dad was in the ICUs, the doctor said, hey, the diagnostics always lag the real clinical nature of a person, right? I mean, there's different ways they look at it. So maybe LLMs allowed to go there because that data today is not captured. The experience of a doctor in analyzing a thing is not there in the data that the LLMs are cranking out, right? So that is the caution we need to look at. And those are things that we need to work towards before we kind of roll these things out. Yeah. So maybe
So you
some of my thoughts there.
tell the hospitals and doctors that, listen, this is only 70 or 60% accurate, 70% accurate.
Correct. Correct.
Not only that,
But see, I mean, that
can
becomes a
capture that
challenge.
data, right?
That becomes a challenge also. I'll tell you, whenever we rolled out things that are less than 95%, people never trusted the systems. You need to be careful about that. See, you're telling that, I mean, 30% of the time I'm wrong. Then when do I know how to trust?
Exactly.
That's a challenge.
Anybody wants to add to?
Yeah, just one point I want to add, Sujit, is that I think Anil touched upon the most important word, trust, right? See, when a clinician or a hospital system is using a device, they don't today suspect the efficacy of the system we're using today, right? They believe it's like your third hand, right, or it's part of your system, okay. And I have seen many cases. There are live examples of companies where they bought in products in the market, amazing products, but it was not at the level of percentage level where the hospitals could trust it, and the products just lost its significance over a period of time. Amazing products, but just that it was not there at that point in time. So how do we build trust is the first question. So if you look at the way healthcare system has been evolving, has been more towards we're not getting autonomous today. We're not getting into a stage like what Balaji mentioned, Tesla state. We're not getting there. We're taking baby steps, right? We're first getting into serviceability space where the risk to patient health is zero, right? You're starting there, low risk items, trying it out, build confidence. Then you're getting into the clinician, then you're getting into hospital workflow space, trying to see how to optimize it. Again, there is zero risk to public health, no problem, go forward. Then when you go to clinician space, that is the most touchy part because that is where it takes a lot of time to establish trust. Okay, there we're taking a lot of baby steps. Most companies today are providing AI tools for assist. We're not trying to make a very comprehensive decision, just assisting the clinician to make choices, right? So we're taking baby steps, right? And at some point, you will be able to cover 70% of the spectrum, and then for the next 30% will be super complex for us to get and close the gap because of the simple fact it takes much more time to establish trust in that system than otherwise. And the other thing what I also seen, Sujit, is I've seen a lot of clinicians, the minute they lose trust, they just don't use the system. Simple. Okay, they do 10 times, and once they have a bad experience, they just don't use it. They prefer to use their intuition and their intelligence than believe on something else.
So you would prefer to commercialize it when it reaches a very high level of
high level of trust.
Yeah,
I think two things are important. One is we have to be super confident that it doesn't cause any kind of risk to public health because patient safety is the most important thing. To get to that level of sophistication takes a bit of time. Second is how do we ensure all these do not break trust with the clinicians? So these two become super important for us.
Yeah, Balaji, you have your hand up. Yeah.
I mean, this may sound a little controversial, but I think of late, and especially recently, there was a very large healthcare conference which happened in India, in Delhi, connected by one of the largest hospitals in India. Very surprisingly, the doctors are actually very keen to embrace AI and technology. There were doctors who were coming and presenting. I think the reason why it's actually making their lives better. I acknowledge Girish and what Anil said, saying that the trust is important, the responsibility is very critical. But I think what is happening is it's aiding the doctor to become more efficient. Instead of he or she scanning through 30, 40 pages of reports and then figuring it out, If something can provide them a gist of it, which is very clear, at least gives them an aid to figure out where the problem can be, number one. Number two, because of past data, it's able to give adjacencies as well to look for. Right? That's number one. But to the question you raised, Sujit, on the barriers, it is data and data's interoperability, which is a huge challenge, which I don't think we've cracked it yet, right? When I say data, it's a same old saying, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So the freshness and the quality of data is very, very critical, and the data dimensions are very critical, number one. Number two is the data interoperability, which unfortunately the healthcare suffers from. The systems have their own metadata, the systems have their own way of representing data. When it moves from one system to the other, or it has to be extracted out and created a data lakehouse or some sort of a repository from where insights can be taken out. The whole transition of data into that generic structure is a challenge because of the various, because majority of the healthcare systems, if you look at even in India less compared to the world, they actually use Scott's products. They use off-the-shelf products in a big way rather than homegrown. And each of them have their own definitions of data. Each of them have their own metadata and manage the data differently. Now, how do we get this data to come together to make some sense? Those are some underlying challenges. So while AI is important and it's mainstream almost, and especially the clinical staff are starting to embrace it because it's bringing them a lot of efficiencies, I think data clarity, data freshness, data quality, and data interoperability continue to remain a challenge. I think the industry is struggling to figure out how to do that, given that there are regulatory requirements as well when data is passed from one system to the other. So I'm trying to respond to your question on what are the potential.
So how easy is it to integrate? You are in the services business. I mean, do you help the people integrate and all of that?
So though, yes, we do. And there are also templates and approaches available, right? There is the FHIR, FIRE approach, which actually does the interoperability integration of data very well. We actually have been leveraging and building our own data interoperability platform. We actually have a system which can put in data and pull out data in a standard form, which can be then flowing into the various systems using the FIRE approach. So there are mechanisms of doing it, but that's still a challenge because two things, right? One, the dimension of data is very, very unique in each of the systems. The second one is the scale of data. I mean, it's humongous, right? I mean, people, if you really look at some of the multiplication factors of the combinations the data can be, it's just mind-boggling. And I think that's where AI plays a huge role because AI is not only Gen AI especially has the ability to speed up or expedite the data processing compared to the traditional process. So I think those are benefits which we are getting, but there are certain obstacles which we need to figure out how to overcome before we adopt it in a very big manner. But clinicians are very keen to adopt it. That's becoming more and more clear for them.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
Just to add to what Balaji, I mean, completely agree with what you're saying. In fact, the right word you used was the metadata about data. I think the entire web has to move towards the semantic web, means you're applying the meaning and context of data. That's one huge challenge, Balaji, I think, as you mentioned. I think if we can make our platforms generate that and expose that, and then we get better at interoperability, I think then there's definitely a positive path forward. Yeah.
No, Balaji was right. I mean, I also heard this. Somebody who knows the doctors in one of the big hospital chains in Bangalore was saying so many of the doctors are actually using ChatGPT. I think not Chat. I don't know whether it's ChatGPT or one of the Gen AI solutions to try and understand even diagnosis. I think. Akhil, you are saying something?
Yeah, no, we should also touch on what will the impact be on India's healthcare system. I mean, the reality is a lot of people don't have access to healthcare, right? What will we see in a few years? Who wants to take?
And I think that's the best thing, Akhil. You brought out, can you diagnose remotely through telemedicine or a teleprompt? That's what is actually happening. Some of the big hospitals are pioneering into that. If you look at some of the missions which the government of India has laid out, as well as some of the large hospitals have come up with, is remote diagnosis, remote care. And that involves a good amount of visual representation being analyzed and figuring out as to what constitutes what can be considered as diagnosis, right? So it is picking up. Telemedicine is now beyond a call. It's gone beyond, right? The virtual care. You forget about even within India. I am aware and I've seen operations where remote nursing support or remote hospital doctor support is being provided from India, from very leading hospitals, including pathological diagnosis services and radiology diagnosis services. So there is the one good thing about this whole data and Gen AI, it's broken barriers between geographies. It is saying that at the end of the day, a diabetic patient is a diabetic patient wherever he or she is, and we'll have to figure it out. There could be localization of challenges, but I think the remote care of patients and the virtual care of patients, that's really gone up multifold. And it is going to become even more richer because this data is only going to further enhance the ability to carry out such diagnosis and provide care. And you're very right, it's heading towards that direction. Virtual care has become a big topic of applicability of AI and Gen AI as well.
But right now, it's not automated, right? There's a person behind the camera right now.
It will get, right? I mean, see, at the end of the day, doctors also have a fatigue issue, right? And the patient is also expecting much more for the dollar he's spending or the rupee he's spending. So it will automatically, the demand is there. It is just the challenges which Anil and Vishnu and others, Girish and others spoke, right? Ethical way of doing things, regulatory compliances, figuring out responsibility of providing the care. As long as those are done and governance is put around what is being adopted, I think it will automatically happen. The demand is there, the need is there, the expectation is there. It is just a matter of time before it's put to use.
So
I agree.
What about
I just wanted to ask Girish this because Girish, GE Healthcare, of course, has been trying to make healthcare accessible for Indians for a long time. I remember the portable ECG monitor and all that. Girish, tell me, I mean, is this going to really make a difference now, Gen AI?
Definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. There's no, I think it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Okay. It will definitely make a difference. We're seeing a lot of startups, especially in, I think Sanjeev was talking about some of the startups under his wings as well. We're doing some phenomenal work in making care continuum more efficient and accessible to the masses. It actually makes a lot of, at least if you look at India specifically, the biggest area we're going to see the penetration of Gen AI is going to be on how do we take healthcare to tier 2, tier 3 cities. Like today, what happens is we're seeing a lot of concentration of medical professionals and good ecosystems, hospital ecosystems, all in large cities. And we're seeing a lot of people coming from tier 3, tier 4 cities to tier 1 cities for better care. And that actually is burdening the tier 1 cities quite a bit in terms of the elasticity on the ecosystem. So we are going to see a good amount of work happening on the AI and Gen AI taking healthcare to where it is today, where it needs the most today.
Okay. Sanjeev and Anil, I wanted to ask you, I mean, and Sanjeev, you said Anil has also been working with you on some of these projects, using these emerging technologies to create solutions for India and all of that. Give us an idea. Anil, I know, has a hard stop in about 5 minutes.
yeah, so I'll let Anil go first. He can tell how he has been using some of the startups.
Yeah, we
that
actually
he works with us.
leveraged.
Then I will go.
Yeah, I mean, this is in the, the drug space. I mean, we use a lot of drugs named, I mean, the drugs in our devices. And when you, let's say, deal with 50, 60,000 different drugs and chemical compositions, in fact, we try to look at, hey, how do we come to the minimal set of it through an AI learning system? In fact, Sanjeev, in 12 weeks, we were able to get to an outcome. Within the first week, we got around 15 nominations of startups. We worked with, nasscom, and they facilitated the whole thing. We picked the startup. And in 12 weeks, we got an outcome. So I think some phenomenal work going on out there with nasscom. And not only that, I think the access we get to the different startups, especially in the diagnostic and therapeutic space. In fact, last week, I've spent almost 3 hours with nasscom. I think the kind of companies, it's so exciting to see. I think the 30 years of experience of Indian market, the talent that is now coming, that's they worked in different industries, right? Including you see the people on this table here. I think that experience is maturing to create solutions. We were so excited to see some products last week in the ophthalmology care area, but integrating it with the diagnostics of X-rays and creating new value propositions. And those are all very enriching products that we can leverage and continue to leverage. So it's been a fantastic partnership.
Great. Sanjeev?
So let me give you a couple of...
And Anil, if you have a hard stop in about 4 minutes, like you said, please. Others, there are a couple of interesting questions from the audience also, which I would like to put to some of you. So if the others have time, please stay on for a few more minutes. Yeah. Sanjeev, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of examples of, we talked about regulation coming in the way. I mean, there is a startup. We work with so many of them, but one that is kind of coming to mind apart from the work Dr. Vishnu is doing, which is he's very popular among the medical circles, is Jivi.ai, based in he's incubated in our center. So he has developed a diagnostic software where you can actually talk to it and get your diagnosis of your problem, just like you talk to a doctor. And his accuracy levels are more than Google and OpenAI. He's number one in the world. A lot of people may not know about it. And these are the benchmarks done by US companies and Hugging Face and those leaderboards, that they have. So sometimes actually we do not know much about the companies that are in our backyard, but doing some great work. I know companies in Pina supplying equipment to Walmart that is deployed there. Thousands of those equipment he has supplied. So that is point number one. Now coming to the GV, now given the regulation involved, you cannot replace, you cannot be saying that you get your diagnosis done by AI. So what he has done a very interesting thing, right? He has twisted his model a little bit. And he's created two things: doctor assistant and patient assistance. As patient is talking to a doctor, and let's say data is getting fed through some mechanism, whether doctor is typing or through voice, this will on a separate window to doctor keep on telling doctor, ask this question, ask that question, this could be the problem, that could be the problem. So doctor's job becomes so much easier. He's got a window in the front as a patient is talking. It helps him in diagnose. He can always override it if he has a conviction it's something else. But for him or her, it is easier, the thing is going. So that is a doctor assistant that is being tried in Medanta and some of the other leading hospitals in the country. So very interesting model. Second is the patient assistance. So this is something that we are trying in largest eye care institute in Tamil Nadu, where, when they do a camp with thousands of people do eye checkups and doctor writes a prescription on whatever the problem they find, patients have a lot of curiosity and a lot of questions. So what you do is this thing will just be your prescription will be fed in the system there. Right there, patient can keep talking to it and ask any question he has, when should I take the medicine? When should I get the surgery? Is my problem repairable? Blah, blah, blah. He can ask 1,000 questions. Doctor may not have time to answer so many, but patient always has more. So this is the thing where, regulation doesn't come into picture and you are assisting people. You are not giving a final judgment, but it saves so much time. It helps the patient, he goes satisfied after this. And it is all based on whatever inputs are given by doctors. So these two are the cases which are going on live right now. And I believe it has a lot of potential and GenAI does a good job of this. You feed your own prescription into OpenAI, you will see good results coming out of it. I can tell any of the people here and audiences, just try it. GenAI does a very good job of it. So I'll just leave it here, but there is, just with the note, that is a lot of interesting work happening in the country. We don't know about it. And our effort is how to take this interesting work into the industry, into our remote areas, into our hospitals, into to the doctors, make people aware and rather make them try and even pay for it at some places, just do a POC, and if you like it, do it. So we go to that extent, and that's where we get our satisfaction. Now, back to you, Sujit.
So nice, so interesting as well. The kind of projects that are coming up. There's a question from Ganesh Mohanraj asking: AI models can inherit biases from training data. How can we ensure fair treatment for all patients? Dr. Vishnu, how do you deal with the issue of biases? Can't hear you.
There are 2 points. One is the bias for things which are not even healthcare, right? So it can be bias against. Like example, I already mentioned this. Most of our work, the genomics data is based on US population, UK population, because that's where the data is available. Currently, if you look into all the LLMs which are built, most of the data again comes from China or from US and Europe. So India will be very underrepresented, though we are like 1 in 6 people on Earth. So obviously it creates a bias against Indians because it's not seeing Indian data. So it might be very bad in diagnosing TB, but it might be very good in diagnosing something which is very common in US. So these kind of biases are inherent based on what data sets we use to build these models. So that's a huge challenge, and that's why India as a country needs a sovereign model which is built with Indian data sets. And that's what India mission is trying to do now, saying like build models for India with Indian data sets. Because even the language, if you see, all models do very well in English and Spanish and Chinese, and most probably German. But when it comes to Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Assamese, they do very badly. So if you have to roll out something like with the GenAI application for Indian population, it has to work in Indian languages very well. It can't be speaking the textbooky language. The mission translated languages which we speak. Nobody speaks Hindi like that. So we have to use how we speak Hindi or like how I speak Telugu, something like that. So that data sets. So these models are going to come this year. So after that, I think the application level will change. And the good thing is they're also asking us to build models for domains also, like healthcare, for legal domain or something like that, because we have to use Indian data sets to build that. Like currently, the data sets are very, very Euro and US centric. So obviously, they don't work very well for very hyper local Indian problems.
Balaji, you must be servicing clients across the globe. I mean, these issues would arise for you as well, is it, Balaji?
Big time, big time. I mean, I think Dr. Vishnu brought it right? It is the demographic data which can sometimes skew the diagnosis. It could be the race color data. It could be a type of classification of drugs which are very localized, which could cause. I mean, there was one case which we even came back last week where the diagnosis information and the treatment after that was involving Ayurvedic and homeopathy and mixed it up with allopathy. Seriously. This was an issue which we had to argue with the clinician and the doctor and the department for 2 weeks to figure out how to separate these two things, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the data is data, and the LLMs crank data out of that. So the biases do happen, and it is extremely important to put some good ring-fenced checkpoints to figure out how these biases don't seep in. But unfortunately, the biases do seep in, and I think the globalization of data and the globalization of approach, I think this is what this will all lead to. We'll remove the biases automatically, but biases and hallucinations are definitely because of the garbage levels of data, hallucinations are also becoming a little more dangerous to adopt. And that is where when I said that the clinicians are getting 50, 60, 70% or not 95% is because of that, because the data is still getting cleansed, the data is still getting better as people start adopting this. And then I think it will become much more sharper. And as Vishnu and others had mentioned, we'll get to a Tesla stage. But I think it is the journey is there. But the good thing about all of this is that it is not behind. It is ahead of us, and we'll have to embrace it. I mean, if you're going to continue to think that AI is another tool, another technology which we can adopt, it's not. It is part of life. Now, whether it will replace not, that's a different conversation altogether. But I think it is enabling richness in output. It is enabling richness in being predictable, and it is enabling richness in quality. And I think we'll have to all, embrace it properly. Biases will be there. Governance has to be there. Ethical ways of doing it is there. Responsible ways are there. But I think that those are evolving very fast.
Okay.
Sujit, I want to add one point, additional point, Sujit, is about, see, there's a growing science in the growing interest or research happening in the space of ethical AI, right? And responsible AI, right? These are big stream of work happening. This is a big question being raised by a lot of practitioners of AI. So there's a lot of focus in terms of how the data should be. How do we make sure the data is diverse enough? There are regulations which are coming up. In the healthcare space, the FDA is looking at this space very, very closely. And more importantly, Sujit, as years progress, right, if you build a model today, it is normal that as years progresses, the model will also drift because you're building data today with a set of data from today's population. But the demographics changes, the population changes, the healthcare scenario changes, obesity will increase, right? All things will change. And the same data which you build today may not be relevant or valid, say, 5 years from now, right? So there's another growing space of ML ops, which is the operations, where you look at data from a model, you fine-tune the model on a continuous basis. This is not yet approved by regulators yet because it's a very complex science. But over a period of time, you'll see that ethical AI, responsible AI, and the focus on ML ops is going to address some of these concerns. At this point, it is a bit more far away than what we want.
Okay. One last question. Akhil, you have a question, right?
We have a question I have one question. It's not the best. Do you have a better question, too?
There's
I have
there's
a question
one.
from Rakesh Jain. Is that the
Ha,
same thing?
ha, ha.
Basically, Rakesh is asking when 95% of reporting is done by AI for radiologists. Are they, if they're wrong, will there be any legal implications?
Because they are signatories to the report.
If radiologists rely on these AI tools too much, will they be? Girish, do you want to take this?
Yeah. At this point, answer is it is actually the responsibility lies. This is one of the reasons about the trust factor, right? What I was talking about. So today, we still have human in the loop. The human in the loop is a mandatory thing, especially on the clinician side. Okay, so that's if even though we have wonderful AI solutions in place, there is one checkpoint happening towards the end of it where somebody, an human has to sign off on the report. Okay, so there is one way of driving accountability into the person who's sending the report. So we are not at a point where AI is autonomous and we can take off the person who's sending out the report.
Yeah, so that doctor has to take responsibility for that. It's not an AI system that's making the call. Right?
No, not yet. So human in the loop
Not yet.
Not an option.
Okay, I know we are out of time, 7 minutes past what we promised you. Great, wonderful discussion. I know, Dr. Vishnu, we wanted to talk about the research part of it as well, but we'll do that some other day. I hope you'll visit India one of these days and we can have a longer chat with you separately. Sanjeev, of course, nasscom, the MeitY's nasscom COE is doing some wonderful work, bringing together startups, big companies, and the government to create all of these fascinating solutions that India needs. Given accessibility and affordability is, of course, a huge problem in India, which needs to be addressed. And all of your work, I'm sure, will have a dramatic impact. It was wonderful listening to some of the solutions that are emerging. I think we are nearing a stage where many things will become possible what was not earlier possible at rates and at speed which was not possible earlier. Thanks a lot, Sanjeev, Vishnu, Balaji, Girish. Really nice having you on this platform. As these technologies mature, I hope to have one more discussion maybe a few months down the line when things are developed and more on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Good talking to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you to Girish and Vishnu for joining in their odd hours. So
Thank you.
I know.
And Vishnu was not so well also. So thank you, Vishnu.
Oh, was it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.